In the vast expanse of the galaxy, humanity was seen as a mere flicker of light, young, naive, and untested. But when a distant colony cried out for help, no one expected the answer to come from Earth. What happens when the galaxy's most underestimated race reveals its true strength? This is the story of the Erebus, humanity's most advanced warship, and the battle that changed everything. Stay tuned to uncover a tale of bravery, defiance, and the moment humanity redefined its destiny among the stars. The skies above Sci-Fi 7 were painted with streaks of fire and ash. The once pristine atmosphere of the Varelian colony, known for its shimmering blue skies and twin suns, now crackled with the ominous hum of Draxian warships. These massive vessels, forged from dark, jagged metals that seemed to drink in the light, hovered menacingly above the planet. Their sharp, angular forms cast long shadows over the colony below, a haunting reminder of the destruction they had already wrought. On the ground, the Varelian settlement was a scene of quiet despair. The Varelians, a graceful, four-limbed species with translucent skin that glowed faintly in the dark, moved silently through the crumbling streets. Their once vibrant city, built from crystalline structures that refracted light into dazzling rainbows, now lay in ruins. Broken shards of their homes littered the ground, reflecting the dim red glow of emergency lights. At the heart of the colony, in an underground command center buried beneath layers of rock, Commander Larath stood hunched over a flickering console. Her normally serene face, framed by delicate tendrils that shimmered like liquid silver, was lined with exhaustion. Her four eyes, each capable of perceiving different spectrums of light, darted over the failing systems displayed on the screen. The protective shields that had held back the Draxian bombardment for weeks were now barely operational. Every few minutes, the ground trembled as another blast from the Draxian fleet struck the colony's defenses. Status report. Laratha's voice was steady, but there was a tremor beneath it, a crack in the facade of calm. One of her officers, a younger Varelian with pale, flickering skin, looked up from their station. Shields are at 12%, Commander. They won't hold through the next wave. Larath closed her eyes for a moment, her mind racing. She knew the odds. The Draxians, with their empire built on conquest and cruelty, had come for the rich mineral deposits beneath Sci-Fi 7's surface. The Varelians had nothing to offer in defense, no warships, no advanced weapons, only their fragile shields and their hope that someone, somewhere, might hear their pleas for help. This is our last chance, Larath murmured, her voice barely audible. She reached for the communication array, her fingers trembling slightly. The console sparked as she activated it, the system strained from repeated use. Her voice, calm but heavy with resignation, filled the room. This is Commander Larath of the Varelian colony on Sci-Fi 7. We are under siege by the Draxian Empire. Our shields are failing, and we have no means to defend ourselves. If anyone can hear this message, please, help us. This may be our final transmission. She paused, her gaze falling to the floor. She knew the truth: no one would come. The galaxy was vast and cruel, and the Varelians were a small, insignificant people in the eyes of the larger powers. Still, she sent a message, her fingers pressing the final command to transmit it into the void. Far away, on a lonely outpost orbiting the edge of Earth's solar system, Lieutenant Clara Hayes sat at her station. The Deep Space Relay Outpost was a quiet, isolated place, where the hum of machinery and the occasional static of incoming transmissions were the only sounds that broke the silence. Clara, a young officer with sharp eyes and a restless energy, had grown used to the monotony of her post. Most nights, she sipped her coffee and stared at the endless streams of data scrolling across her console, waiting for anything to happen. That night, as she leaned back in her chair, the console emitted a sharp, urgent beep. Clara straightened instantly, her heart skipping a beat. She leaned forward, her fingers flying over the controls as she brought up the incoming transmission. The message appeared on her screen, its translation software struggling to keep up with the alien language. As the words resolved into something she could understand, Clara's breath caught in her throat. "This is Commander Larath of the Virelian colony on Zyphorus 7. Clara read the message twice, her mind racing. The details were clear. An entire colony was on the brink of annihilation, and they were begging for help. But what struck her most was the tone of the message. There was no expectation of rescue, only a desperate need to be heard. She didn't hesitate. Her hands moved quickly, opening a secure channel to Earth Command. "This is Lieutenant Clara Hayes at Relay Station 12. I've received a distress signal from a Virelian colony under siege. It's bad, sir. They are being attacked by the Draxian Empire, and their shields are about to fail." The response came faster than she expected. Admiral Marcus Kane, a man known for his calm demeanor and sharp instincts, appeared on her screen. His graying hair was slightly disheveled, and his piercing blue eyes locked onto Clara's. "Show me the message," he ordered. Clara played the transmission. Kane listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each passing second. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair, his gaze distant. "Zyphorus 7, he muttered, as if recalling something from memory. "That's deep in Draxian territory. No one's dared challenge them there before." Clara watched him carefully. "Sir, what do we do? The colony won't last much longer." For a moment, Kane said nothing. Then, his eyes sharpened, and his voice took on a tone of quiet determination. "We deploy the Erebus." Clara's eyes widened. The Erebus was a name spoken only in whispers, a ship so advanced, so secret, that even most Earth officers didn't know it existed. It was humanity's hidden ace, a warship built in the shadows to protect Earth from the threats no one else could face. "Are you sure, sir?" Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kane nodded. "The Draxians think humanity is weak. They think we're too young, too primitive to stand against them. It's time to show them how wrong they are. Prepare the Erebus for immediate launch." As the transmission ended, Clara sat back in her chair, her heart pounding. Somewhere out there, on a distant planet, an entire colony was waiting for a rescue they didn't believe would come. And now, for the first time, humanity was about to step into the galactic stage not as the observers they had been, but as a force to be reckoned with. In the silence of the relay station, Clara whispered to herself, "Hold on, Zyphorus 7. Help is coming." This section captures the desperation of the Virelians, the menace of the Draxians, and the weight of humanity's decision to intervene. The emotional tension builds as the story shifts between the hopelessness of the colony and the quiet resolve of Earth's officers, setting the stage for the epic events to come. Far above Earth, hidden within the shadow of its largest moon, a massive structure loomed in the darkness. The classified dock, known only to a handful of Earth's highest-ranking officials, was a fortress of secrets. Its exterior was cold and unassuming, a labyrinth of sharp angles and blackened steel that blended into the void of space. Inside, however, it housed something extraordinary, a creation so advanced, so dangerous, that its very existence had been buried beneath layers of classified files and whispered rumors. The Erebus. The ship rested in the heart of the dock, its sleek, obsidian hull absorbing every stray glimmer of light. Unlike the bulky designs of Earth's older vessels, the Erebus seemed almost alive, its surface shimmering faintly with an iridescent sheen. It was a predator, designed to move unseen, to strike without warning, and to leave nothing but silence in its wake. For decades, it had been Earth's ultimate secret, hidden away as humanity quietly prepared for the day when it might need to defend itself against the galaxy's predators. That day had come. Inside the dock, a team of engineers moved with purpose, their faces tense as they worked to bring the ship to life. The air was thick with the low hum of machinery and the occasional hiss of pressurized steam. Lights flickered on along the ship's hull, tracing its sharp, angular contours. The Erebus seemed to awaken from a long slumber, its systems coming online one by one. In the command center overlooking the dock, Captain Evelyn Hart stood silently, her gloved hands clasped behind her back. She was a woman of unshakable resolve, her presence commanding yet calm. Her dark hair was tied neatly at the nape of her neck, and her sharp green eyes scanned the activity below with a quiet intensity. Evelyn was no stranger to impossible missions. Decorated for her courage and tactical brilliance, she had faced threats most would have fled from. But this mission was different. The weight of it pressed against her chest like a physical force. This wasn't just about saving a colony. It was about revealing humanity's hand to the galaxy, a hand they had kept hidden for so long. A voice broke through her thoughts. "Captain," said Commander Elias Trent, her second-in-command. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a steady gaze and a voice that carried a calm authority. "The crew is aboard, and the ship is fully operational. We're ready to launch on your command." Evelyn nodded, her expression unreadable. "And the mission parameters?" "Clear," Trent replied. "We're to reach Zephyrus 7 as quickly as possible, protect the colony, and avoid direct engagement with the Draxian fleet unless absolutely necessary." Admiral Kane was explicit: this is a rescue mission, not a declaration of war. Evelyn's lips pressed into a thin line. She knew the risks. A single misstep could ignite a conflict that would engulf the galaxy. The Draxians were a ruthless empire, their power unmatched, their cruelty legendary. And yet, she also knew that humanity could not stand by and watch an innocent colony be wiped out. "Understood," she said finally. Her voice was steady, but there was a fire in her eyes. "Prepare for launch." As the final checks were completed, the Erebus began to disengage from the dock. The massive clamps that held it in place released with a metallic groan, and the ship drifted forward, its engines humming softly. The dock's massive doors, reinforced with layers of titanium and electromagnetic shielding, began to slide open, revealing the endless void beyond. Inside the ship, the crew moved with practiced efficiency. The corridors of the Erebus were dimly lit, the walls lined with panels that pulsed faintly with energy. Every surface was sleek and seamless, designed for both function and stealth. The air was cool and carried a faint metallic tang. In the command bridge, Evelyn stood at the center, surrounded by her officers. The bridge was a circular room, its walls lined with holographic displays that projected real-time data from every corner of the ship. A massive viewport stretched across the front, revealing the dark expanse of space. Evelyn's voice cut through the quiet. "Initiate the Spectre drive." There was no dramatic burst of light, no roar of engines. The Erebus simply vanished. Its advanced stealth systems rendered it invisible to both the eye and sensors, leaving no trace of its presence. To the rest of the galaxy, it was as if the ship had never existed. As the Erebus accelerated into the void, the weight of the mission began to settle over the crew. In the silence of their quarters, some whispered prayers to gods long forgotten. Others stared out of the small observation windows, their thoughts heavy with the knowledge of what lay ahead. For many, this was their first glimpse of the galaxy beyond Earth's borders. The stars stretched endlessly in every direction, their cold light a reminder of how small and fragile humanity truly was. And yet, in the heart of the Erebus, there was a spark of defiance, a quiet determination to prove that humanity, though young and untested, would not be ignored. In her private quarters, Evelyn sat alone, her hands resting on the edge of a small, metal table. Before her was a holographic display of Zyphorus 7, its surface marked with red indicators of the Draxian fleet. She studied it in silence, her mind running through countless scenarios. She thought of the Virelians, a people she had never met but whose lives now depended on her. She thought of the Draxians, and the brutal empire they had built through centuries of conquest. Most of all, she thought of Earth, of the billions of lives that would be affected by the actions she took in the coming days. Her fingers tightened into fists. "We will not fail," she whispered to herself. The journey to Zyphorus 7, which should have taken weeks, was shortened to mere days. The Erebus moved like a phantom through the void, its advanced propulsion systems bending space itself to its will. As they neared their destination, the mood aboard the ship grew heavier. The crew knew what was at stake. This wasn't just a mission, it was a statement. The galaxy would know, for the first time, what humanity was capable of. In the quiet of the bridge, Evelyn stood before the viewport, her gaze fixed on the distant stars. Somewhere out there, a colony was waiting for them. Somewhere out there, the Draxians were preparing to strike the final blow. Her voice broke the silence, calm and resolute. "Prepare for arrival. Let's show them what humanity can do." And with that, the Erebus surged forward, a shadow in the void, carrying with it the hopes and fears of an entire species. The air on Zyphorus 7 was heavy with despair, a suffocating weight that pressed down on every soul in the colony. The once thriving settlement, nestled in the shadow of crystalline mountains, now lay in ruins. Smoke curled into the sky, black and acrid, twisting like dark veins against the faint glow of the planet's twin suns. The streets, once filled with the gentle hum of Irelian life, were now eerily silent, save for the distant rumble of Draxian bombardments. In the command center, buried deep beneath the surface, Commander Larath stood surrounded by chaos. Officers scrambled around her, their voices rising in panic as reports flooded in. The shields, their last line of defense, had dropped to a critical 15%. Each tremor that shook the ground above was a grim reminder that the colony's time was running out. "Commander," one of her officers called out, his voice trembling. "The Draxians are repositioning their fleet. Their main cannon is charging." Larath's translucent skin, which normally shimmered with a soft, calming light, was now dim and pale. Her 4 eyes, each capable of seeing into different spectrums, flickered with exhaustion and dread. She clenched her jaw, her mind racing. They had no weapons, no reinforcements, no hope. "Begin the evacuation," she ordered, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging within her. "Prioritize the children and the vulnerable. Get them to the emergency pods." The officers hesitated for a moment, their gazes filled with unspoken questions. But Larath's expression left no room for debate. "Do it now," she said firmly. In the lower levels of the colony, families huddled together as the evacuation began. The emergency pods, small, spherical vessels designed for short-range escape, lined the walls of the cavernous hangar. Parents whispered hurried goodbyes to their children, their voices breaking with emotion as they tried to reassure them. A young Virelian girl clung to her mother, her wide, luminous eyes brimming with tears. "Will you come with me?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Her mother knelt down, placing a trembling hand on the child's cheek. "Soon, my star," she whispered. "I'll be right behind you." The girl was gently guided into a pod, her small face pressed against the window as the hatch sealed shut. One by one, the pods began to launch, shooting into the sky like falling stars in reverse, their paths erratic as they tried to evade the Draxian fleet above. High above the planet, aboard the Draxian flagship, General Cord stood on the bridge, his massive frame radiating menace. His skin, a deep, mottled crimson, seemed to ripple with power, and his eyes burned with a cold, predatory light. The Draxians were a species bred for conquest, their empire built on the ashes of those they had crushed beneath their boots. And Cord was their finest weapon, a ruthless tactician who took pleasure in the destruction of weaker civilizations. He watched the planet below with a cruel smirk, his sharp, jagged teeth bared in anticipation. "The shields are failing," he growled, his voice like the grinding of stone. "Prepare the main cannon. I want this colony reduced to dust." The Draxian officers around him moved quickly, their clawed hands gliding over control panels as the ship's main weapon began to charge. A deep, resonant hum filled the bridge, growing louder with each passing second. Cord turned to his second-in-command, a smaller, wiry Draxian with nervous energy. "Let this serve as a reminder to the galaxy," Cord said, his tone dripping with malice. "No one defies the Draxian Empire and lives." Just as the cannon's energy reached its peak, a sudden, blinding flash of light tore through the void. It was as if a star had ignited in the darkness, its brilliance cutting through the shadows cast by the Draxian fleet. The bridge of Cord's flagship fell silent as every eye turned to the source of the light. Emerging from the warp, the Erebus appeared sleek, black, and ominous, its silhouette sharp and angular against the backdrop of Zephyr 7. Its arrival was like the appearance of a phantom, a shadow given form. But then, something impossible happened. 4 more identical ships materialized around it, their forms shimmering into existence as if they had been summoned from the void itself. The Draxians stared in stunned disbelief. 5 ships, each identical in design, now surrounded their fleet in a perfect formation. Cord's eyes narrowed, his claws digging into the armrests of his command chair. "What trickery is this?" he snarled. The answer lay in the Spectre Array, an advanced holographic projection system aboard the Erebus. To the Draxians, the 5 ships appeared indistinguishable, their movements perfectly synchronized. But in truth, only one was real. On the bridge of the Erebus, Captain Evelyn Hart stood in silence, her expression unreadable. The tension in the room was palpable as the crew waited for her command. "They don't know which one is real," Commander Trent said quietly, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Evelyn's gaze remained fixed on the Draxian fleet. "Good," she replied. "Let them wonder." The Draxian fleet hesitated, their formation faltering as confusion spread among their ranks. Cord's officers scrambled to make sense of the situation, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of panic. "General, we can't lock onto a target," one of them shouted. "The signals are identical." Cord's rage boiled over. "Fire on all of them," he roared. "I don't care if it's real or not, destroy them all." The Draxian ships opened fire, their weapons unleashing a torrent of energy blasts that lit up the darkness like a violent storm. But the Erebus and its phantom counterparts moved with impossible precision, weaving through the chaos with an elegance that defied logic. The holograms flickered and shifted, each one mimicking the movements of the real ship, creating a dance of shadows that left the Draxians firing blindly into the void. On the bridge of the Erebus, Evelyn watched the chaos unfold, her sharp mind calculating every move. "They are panicking," she said, her voice calm. "Exactly as we planned." Commander Trent nodded. "Their main cannon is still charging. If we don't act now..." Evelyn raised a hand, silencing him. "We'll act," she said firmly. Her eyes gleamed with determination. "But on our terms." As the Erebus prepared to strike, the crew knew one thing for certain: the Draxians had underestimated humanity. And now, they would pay the price. The shadow of the Erebus loomed over the battlefield, a silent predator ready to pounce. A tense silence hung over the bridge of the Erebus, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's systems. The holographic display before Captain Evelyn Hart shimmered with the image of the Draxian fleet, their massive warships like floating fortresses, bristling with weapons and exuding an aura of unstoppable power. But Evelyn's gaze was steady, unshaken by the sight of the enemy. She drew in a slow breath, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Open the channel." A moment later, her image was projected across the void, appearing on the bridges of every Draxian vessel. She stood tall, her uniform impeccable, her sharp green eyes locked with the camera as if she could see into the hearts of her enemies. "This is Captain Evelyn Hart of the Earth vessel Erebus," she began, her tone calm but laced with steel. "You are attacking a peaceful colony under our protection. Stand down immediately, or we will be forced to respond." Her words echoed across the Draxian fleet, carried on waves of defiance. For a brief moment, there was silence then laughter. On the bridge of his flagship, General Court leaned back in his command chair, his jagged teeth bared in a cruel grin. "Earth," he sneered, his deep voice rumbling with disdain. "A backwater planet filled with primitives dares to challenge the might of the Draxian Empire?" The officers around him chuckled nervously, though their eyes betrayed flickers of unease. Court rose to his full height, his crimson skin glistening under the dim lights of the bridge. He loomed over the holographic image of Evelyn, his expression twisted with mockery. "Your threats are as laughable as your species, Captain," he growled. "You should have stayed hidden in your little corner of the galaxy. Now, you will learn what happens to those who defy us." He turned to his crew, his voice booming. "All ships, destroy them. Leave nothing but debris." The Draxian fleet moved as one, their ships surging forward like a pack of predators closing in for the kill. Energy cannons lit up the darkness, their blasts streaking toward the Erebus and its phantom counterparts. But what should have been a swift and decisive strike turned into chaos. The Spectre array aboard the Erebus continued its intricate dance, the holographic projections shifting and weaving through the void with uncanny precision. To the Draxians, it was as if their prey had multiplied, each ship indistinguishable from the other. Their targeting systems, overwhelmed by conflicting data, faltered and failed. On the bridge of the Erebus, Evelyn watched the chaos unfold, her expression calm but focused. "They are scrambling," Commander Trent said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "They underestimated us," Evelyn replied, her tone cold. "Now they'll pay for it." Her gaze flicked to her weapons officer. "Target their lead cruiser. Disable its engines and weapons systems." The officer nodded, his fingers flying across the console. Moments later, the Erebus unleashed its first strike. The attack was swift and precise. A single, concentrated beam of energy lanced out from the Erebus, cutting through the void like a blade of light. It struck the Draxian lead cruiser, bypassing its shields as if they weren't even there. The beam sliced through the ship's hull with surgical precision, severing its engines and leaving it dead in the water. On the Draxian bridge, alarms blared as sparks rained from the ceiling. Corda's eyes widened in disbelief as his flagship shuddered under the impact. What is this?" he roared, his voice filled with rage and confusion. Before his crew could respond, another blast from the Erebus struck a second Draxian ship, disabling its weapons in a flash of light. The once imposing vessels now drifted helplessly, their mighty forms reduced to little more than floating wreckage. The rest of the Draxian fleet faltered, their movements hesitant as fear crept into their ranks. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Draxian Empire had crushed countless civilizations, their technology unmatched, their power unchallenged. And yet, here they were, being outmaneuvered and outgunned by a single ship from a species they had dismissed as insignificant. On the bridge of the Erebus, Evelyn allowed herself a small, grim smile. "They are stunned," she said quietly. "Captain," Trent said, his voice tinged with awe, "their shields, they are supposed to be impenetrable. How did we?" Evelyn cut him off with a sharp glance. "We don't need to understand their disbelief. We just need to use it." Her voice hardened. "Target their flagship. Let's show them what humanity is capable of." As the Erebus prepared for its next strike, Corda's rage boiled over. He slammed a clawed fist onto the armrest of his chair, his voice a thunderous roar. "This is impossible. No one can penetrate our shields." One of his officers, trembling, dared to speak. "General, their technology, it's unlike anything we've encountered before. We can't track them, we can't stop them." Cord turned on him, his eyes blazing. "Then find a way," he bellowed. "I will not be humiliated by these humans." But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his mind. For the first time in his long and brutal career, Cord faced an enemy he could not crush with brute force. On the battlefield, the Erebus loomed like a shadow of death, its sleek form gliding through the chaos with an almost predatory grace. Each move was calculated, each strike devastating. The Draxian fleet, once so confident in their dominance, now found themselves on the defensive, their arrogance shattered. Evelyn's voice rang out across the bridge, calm and commanding. "Broadcast another message to the Draxians. Let them know this is their last chance to withdraw." The crew obeyed, and once again, Evelyn's image appeared on the Draxian ships. "You've seen what we can do," she said, her voice cold and unyielding. "This is your final warning. Leave this colony, or we will destroy you." Her words hung in the air like a blade poised to strike. The Draxians, for the first time, hesitated. Fear had taken root in their hearts, and the realization was dawning on them: humanity was not the weak, primitive species they had believed. On the bridge of the Erebus, Evelyn stood tall, her eyes burning with determination. She was no longer just a captain. In this moment, she was the voice of humanity itself, a voice that demanded to be heard. In the vastness of space, the battle unfolded like a cosmic dance, the Erebus weaving through the Draxian fleet with unmatched agility. Each move was precise, each strike a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. The once mighty Draxian ships, symbols of an empire that had crushed countless worlds, now drifted helplessly, their weapons silenced, their engines cold. On the surface of Zephyrus 7, the Virelian colonists stood in stunned silence, their eyes fixed on the sky. The air was thick with anticipation, a collective breath held as they watched the unfolding spectacle. The crystalline mountains that had witnessed so much despair now echoed with a new emotion: hope. For the first time, the Virelians saw a glimmer of possibility, a chance for survival against the seemingly invincible Draxians. Families gathered in the open, pointing upwards, their faces illuminated by the distant flashes of light. Children, who had been hurried into emergency pods with tears in their eyes, now watched with awe and wonder. Whispers spread through the crowd, stories of the humans, those mysterious allies from a distant world who had come to their aid when all seemed lost. In the command center beneath the surface, Commander Larath stood surrounded by her officers, her heart swelling with emotions she could barely contain. Gratitude, relief, disbelief all mingled together as she watched the impossible unfold on the monitors. The humans were achieving what no other species had dared. They were standing up to the Draxians and winning. Her 4 eyes blinked in unison, a rare display of emotion for a Virelian. She turned to her communications officer, her voice filled with a warmth that cut through the tension. "Send a message to the Erebus," she instructed. Tell them we are forever in their debt." As the message was transmitted, Larath allowed herself a moment of reflection. The humans had risked everything to protect them, to stand against a force that had brought so many to their knees. It was an act of courage and defiance that would be remembered for generations. Aboard the Erebus, Captain Evelyn Hart received Larath's message. The words of gratitude resonated deeply, but Evelyn's mind was already racing ahead. She knew the battle was far from over. The Draxians, though momentarily stunned, would regroup. Their retaliation would be swift and brutal, as relentless as the tide. On the bridge, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of triumph and tension. The crew, though buoyed by their success, understood the gravity of their situation. They had struck a blow against the Draxians, but the Empire's wrath would not be easily quenched. Evelyn turned to her first officer, Commander Trent, her expression serious. "We've bought some time, but we can't let our guard down," she said, her voice firm. "The Draxians will come back stronger. We need to be ready." Trent nodded, his respect for Evelyn evident in his eyes. "What's our next move, Captain?" he asked, his voice steady. Evelyn looked out at the stars, her mind calculating the possibilities. "We fortify our position and prepare for their return," she replied. "And we find allies. The Draxians may be powerful, but they are not invincible. We've proven that today." Her words carried a weight of determination, a promise that humanity would not stand alone in this fight. As the crews set to work, a renewed sense of purpose filled the air. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for a future where the Draxians' tyranny would be challenged, where hope could flourish among the stars. On the surface, as the Virelians watched the skies, a sense of unity and resilience began to take root. They were no longer isolated, no longer alone. The humans had shown them that even in the darkest moments, there was light to be found. And as the echoes of battle faded into the night, a new chapter began, a chapter where courage, hope, and solidarity would shape the destiny of Zyphorus 7 and beyond. The air aboard the Erebus was heavy with a quiet hum of activity. Repairs were underway, both for the ship and for the Virelian colony below. The crew moved with purpose, their faces lined with exhaustion but also pride. They had achieved a victory no one thought possible, yet the weight of what was to come loomed over them like a shadow. In the colony below, the quiet buzz of machinery echoed through the crystalline valleys as the Virelians worked alongside human engineers to rebuild what had been destroyed. The once shattered structures, made of glimmering, translucent material, now began to rise again, catching the light of the twin suns in a way that seemed almost magical. Despite the destruction, there was hope in every movement, every word exchanged between the two species. But then, an interruption. On the Erebus, the bridge lights dimmed without warning. A low, resonant hum filled the air, as though the ship itself were holding its breath. The crew froze, glancing at each other uneasily. Before anyone could speak, the main display shimmered, the stars beyond the viewport momentarily fading into darkness. And then, it appeared. A figure, tall and impossibly elegant, materialized before them. Its form was crystalline, its translucent body shimmering with shifting hues of blue, silver, and violet. Light seemed to refract within it, casting tiny rainbows across the walls. Its face was smooth, featureless except for two glowing orbs where eyes might have been. It radiated an aura of ancient wisdom and quiet power, a presence that seemed to fill the room and press against the very edges of reality. The crew stared in stunned silence. Even Evelyn, who had faced countless dangers, found herself momentarily breathless. The being spoke, its voice resonating not just in the air but in their minds, a deep, melodic tone that carried the weight of eons. "I am Sentinel Arian, of the Celestial Observers," it said, its words slow and deliberate. We have been watching. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of those words settling over them. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice steady despite the strange encounter. "Watching what?" she asked, her tone cautious. "Watching you," Arian replied, its glowing eyes fixed on her. "Humanity's rise has not gone unnoticed. Your defiance, your ingenuity, your will to survive, they echo across the stars. But your actions have consequences, Captain Hart." The crystalline being shifted slightly, as though it were peering into the very fabric of space itself. "The Draxians are mobilizing," it continued. 23 battleships, each armed with the power to lay waste to entire worlds, are assembling as we speak. They are coming for Earth. A heavy silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's systems. The crew's faces paled, the weight of Arian's words sinking in. 23 battleships. It was more than just retaliation, it was annihilation. Evelyn's jaw tightened, her mind racing. "Why are you telling us this?" she asked, her voice sharp. "If you've been watching, why haven't you interfered before?" Arian's form flickered slightly, as though the question had stirred something deep within it. "We are the observers," it said, its tone carrying an almost sorrowful weight. "We do not interfere. We are the keepers of balance, the watchers of threads that weave the galaxy together. But humanity, you are a thread that burns brighter than most. Your defiance has shifted the balance, and now the galaxy stirs in response." The bridge seemed to grow colder, the weight of Arian's words pressing down on everyone. Evelyn's fists clenched at her sides, her mind a storm of emotions: fear for Earth, anger at the Draxians, frustration at the observers' passivity. "What are we supposed to do?" she demanded, her voice rising. "You come here with warnings, but no solutions. If the Draxians are coming, how are we supposed to stop them?" Arian tilted its head, the light within its crystalline body dimming slightly. "That is not for me to decide," it said. "Humanity's path is its own to forge. But know this, the Draxians are not your only threat. The galaxy is vast, and the ripples of your actions will spread far beyond this moment. Allies may rise, or enemies may awaken. The choice will be yours." The being's glowing eyes seemed to pierce through Evelyn, as though it could see the very core of her being. "Prepare yourselves, Captain Hart," it said, its voice softer now, almost gentle. "For the storm is coming. And humanity will either stand or be swept away." Before anyone could respond, Arian's form began to dissolve, the light within it scattering like shards of glass caught in the wind. The hum faded, the bridge lights returned, and the stars outside the viewport reappeared, as though nothing had happened. For a moment, no one spoke. The crew stood frozen, the weight of what they had just witnessed too immense to process. Finally, Evelyn broke the silence, her voice calm but firm. "You heard it," she said, turning to her officers. "The Draxians are coming. We don't have time to waste." Her words snapped the crew into action, but the tension lingered in the air. The mysterious warning from the observer had left its mark, a reminder that their fight was far from over and that the galaxy held secrets and dangers far greater than they could imagine. As Evelyn stared out at the stars, her mind turned to Earth. She could almost feel the weight of her home world, fragile and beautiful, hanging in the balance. The storm was coming, and she would do everything in her power to make sure humanity survived it. In the heart of Earth's sprawling metropolis, the headquarters of the United Earth Coalition buzzed with an urgency that matched the looming threat. The Grand Chamber, usually a place of measured debate and political maneuvering, now thrummed with tension. The air was thick with anticipation as Admiral Kane stood before the Council, his presence commanding and resolute. Admiral Kane, a man whose eyes bore the weight of countless battles, addressed the assembly with a gravity that left no room for doubt. "The Draxians are coming," he began, his voice echoing through the hall. "Their fleet is vast, their intent clear. We face annihilation if we do not act swiftly." The council members, representing the diverse nations and cultures of Earth, exchanged uneasy glances. The enormity of the threat hung over them like a storm cloud, dark and foreboding. Whispers filled the room, questions of survival and strategy swirling in the air. As the debate unfolded, a central question emerged: should humanity reveal its hidden technological advancements to the galaxy? These secrets, guarded fiercely for decades, could tip the scales in their favor but also expose Earth to new dangers. Voices rose and fell, some arguing for caution, others for boldness. Finally, after hours of deliberation, a decision was reached. The Council voted to implement Project Vanguard, a daring initiative to showcase Earth's strength and forge alliances with other oppressed species. It was a gamble, but one they hoped would unite those who had suffered under Draxian tyranny. Admiral Kane nodded, his expression one of determination and resolve. "The Erebus will lead this charge," he declared. "Captain Hart and her crew will journey to the Theta Expanse, where representatives from 7 alien races are gathering. It is there that we will make our stand." The decision set in motion a plan that would either save humanity or plunge it into deeper peril. The weight of the world rested on their shoulders, but there was no turning back. The path was set, and Earth's fate lay in the hands of those brave enough to walk it. The Erebus glided through the vastness of space, its destination a neutral station nestled within the enigmatic Theta Expanse. This station, a beacon of hope amidst the stars, was a place where diplomacy could flourish, where ancient grievances might be set aside for a greater cause. As the ship docked, Captain Evelyn Hart prepared to meet with the leaders of alien races who had also felt the cruel grasp of the Draxians. Her heart was a mix of hope and trepidation, knowing that the future of many worlds depended on the alliances forged in these halls. The station itself was a marvel, a confluence of architectural styles, each section reflecting the culture of its inhabitants. The air was filled with a cacophony of languages, the hum of different life forms creating a symphony of diversity. Captain Hart stepped into the grand meeting chamber, greeted by the curious and cautious eyes of the delegates. These leaders, each bearing the scars of conflict, looked to her and the Erebus as symbols of defiance and possibility. Stories of the victory at Zephyrus 7 had spread like wildfire, igniting a spark of hope among those who had long lived in fear. Earth's ambassador, Dr. Amelia Cross, took the stage, her presence commanding yet compassionate. With eloquence and passion, she spoke of unity and strength, urging the delegates to stand together against their common enemy. Her words were a balm to weary souls, a call to action that resonated deeply. "Together, we are stronger than any force that seeks to divide us," Dr. Cross declared, her voice carrying the weight of conviction. "The Draxians may be powerful, but they are not invincible. Let us forge a future where freedom and peace are not just dreams, but realities." As her speech concluded, a tentative trust began to form among the delegates. It was fragile, like a delicate thread woven through the fabric of their shared struggles, but it was a start. Conversations blossomed, plans were whispered, and slowly, the foundation of an alliance took shape. Captain Hart watched as barriers began to crumble, replaced by a shared sense of purpose. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope, a belief that together, they could stand against the darkness and reclaim their destinies. The alliance was fragile but real, like a delicate tapestry woven from threads of shared pain and hope. Representatives from 7 alien races had pledged their support, their voices trembling with the weight of past losses and newfound courage. For the first time in centuries, there was unity among the oppressed. Yet, this fragile peace was shattered by the arrival of grim news. The message came like a thunderclap in the quiet halls of the neutral station. The Draxian fleet, 23 colossal battleships, was only days away from Earth. The room fell silent as the words sank in, dread seeping into every corner. The delegates exchanged fearful glances, their resolve tested by the sheer scale of the threat. It was no longer a distant danger. The storm was upon them. Back aboard the Erebus, Captain Evelyn Hart stood on the bridge, her face a mask of determination. The weight of the galaxy seemed to press down on her shoulders, but she refused to falter. Around her, the crew worked tirelessly, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The ship's corridors buzzed with activity, voices sharp with urgency, yet beneath it all, there was an unspoken fear. They were heading into the jaws of the enemy, and the odds were grim. The Erebus was not alone. A convoy of older Earth ships, their hulls scarred by past battles, joined the fleet. These ships, though outdated and outgunned, carried crews who were willing to give everything for their home world. Their presence was a testament to humanity's resilience, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they would stand and fight. But the Draxians were not silent. As the human fleet prepared, a transmission echoed across the galaxy, a message from the Draxian Emperor himself. His image flickered into view, a towering figure clad in ornate armor, his crimson eyes burning with malice. He spoke with a voice that was both regal and venomous, his words dripping with disdain. "Humans," he began, his tone cold and commanding. "Your defiance is an affront to the natural order. You have overstepped your bounds, and now you will pay the price. Your planet will burn, your people will kneel, and your legacy will be one of ash." The broadcast sent chills through the hearts of all who heard it. Across the galaxy, the message was clear: humanity's rebellion would not go unpunished. Yet, even as fear gripped them, there was a spark of defiance. The Emperor's words, meant to sow despair, instead ignited a fire in those who had suffered under Draxian rule. On the Erebus, Captain Hart clenched her fists, her resolve hardening into steel. "We'll see about that," she muttered under her breath, her voice low but filled with determination. The countdown to battle had begun. The Draxian fleet arrived like a storm, their massive warships emerging from the void with an ominous grace. Each vessel was a behemoth of destruction, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that could obliterate entire cities. They moved into Earth's orbit with a terrifying precision, their sheer size dwarfing the human fleet that awaited them. From the surface of Earth, the night sky was filled with streaks of light as the two fleets clashed. The Erebus, leading the charge, was a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Its sleek, advanced design stood in stark contrast to the battered ships surrounding it. Yet, it was not the ship's appearance that inspired courage, it was the spirit of those aboard it. The first volleys were deafening, the vacuum of space unable to silence the fury of the battle. Explosions lit up the darkness, fiery blossoms that marked the loss of lives and ships. The Erebus moved like a predator, its advanced weapons tearing through the Draxian ranks. The Spectre array, a marvel of human ingenuity, unleashed devastating attacks that struck with unerring precision. But the Draxians were relentless. Their warships, though massive and cumbersome, were equipped with overwhelming firepower. One by one, Earth's older ships fell, their hulls breaking apart under the onslaught. The cries of their crews echoed in the hearts of those who remained, each loss a painful reminder of the stakes. Captain Hart stood on the bridge of the Erebus, her eyes fixed on the chaos outside. Around her, the crew worked with desperate focus, their hands trembling but their resolve unshaken. Every decision she made carried the weight of countless lives, yet she did not waver. She knew that if they faltered, Earth would fall. As the battle raged on, it seemed as though defeat was inevitable. The Draxian fleet pressed forward, their ships closing in on Earth. The human fleet was outnumbered, outgunned, and on the verge of collapse. Despair began to creep into the hearts of even the bravest. And then, like a miracle, reinforcements arrived. From the depths of space, new Earth ships emerged, their design sleek and unfamiliar. These vessels, equipped with the same advanced technology as the Erebus, turned the tide of the battle. Their weapons cut through the Draxian fleet with a precision and power that left the enemy reeling. The balance shifted, and hope was rekindled. The Erebus led the final charge, its crew fighting with everything they had. The Draxians, once so confident in their dominance, began to falter. Their ships, though mighty, could not withstand the combined might of humanity and its allies. One by one, they fell, until the Emperor's flagship was forced to retreat. As the last of the Draxian ships disappeared into the void, a cheer erupted across the human fleet. The battle was over, but the cost had been great. Wreckage drifted through space, a somber reminder of the lives lost. Yet, amidst the sorrow, there was a sense of triumph. Humanity had faced the storm and emerged victorious. Captain Hart stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the stars. The fight was far from over. The Draxians would return, and the galaxy remained a dangerous place. But for now, there was hope. And that was enough. The silence after the battle was deafening. Where once the void of space had been alive with the flashes of explosions and the screams of dying ships, now there was only stillness. The wreckage of the Draxian fleet drifted silently, a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered dreams. Among the debris floated the remnants of Earth's own sacrifices, ships that had given everything to protect their home world. The cost of victory hung heavy in the air, a weight that pressed down on every survivor. On the Erebus, the mood was somber yet resolute. The crew moved through the corridors with quiet purpose, their faces etched with exhaustion and grief, but also a flicker of something new: hope. Captain Evelyn Hart stood alone on the observation deck, her gaze fixed on the stars. They seemed brighter now, as if the galaxy itself was acknowledging the courage of those who had fought. The battle had changed everything. Humanity, once dismissed as a minor player in the vast theater of galactic politics, had proven its strength. The alliance forged at the neutral station had held, and now, across the galaxy, whispers of rebellion were growing louder. Oppressed species, inspired by Earth's defiance, began to rise against their Draxian overlords. The tides of history were shifting, and humanity was at the center of it all. Hart's thoughts drifted back to the journey that had brought them here. She remembered the fear she had felt when the Draxian Emperor's broadcast had first reached them, the weight of responsibility that had threatened to crush her. She thought of the allies they had gained, the trust that had been built through shared sacrifice. And she thought of the lives lost, the friends, the comrades, the countless souls who had given everything for this moment. A soft knock at the door broke her reverie. It was Dr. Amelia Cross, the ambassador whose words had helped unite the alliance. Her face was tired but determined, her eyes reflecting the same mixture of sorrow and hope that Hart felt. "They are waiting for you," Cross said gently. "The council wants to hear from you?" Hart nodded, taking a deep breath. She turned to face the ambassador, her expression firm. "We've come so far," she said quietly. "But this is just the beginning. We can't let this victory make us complacent." Cross smiled faintly. "No one's forgetting what's at stake. But for now, they need to hear from their captain. They need to know that this fight was worth it." As Hart walked toward the council chamber, she felt the weight of her role settle on her shoulders. She was no longer just a captain. She was a symbol, a reminder that even the smallest spark of resistance could ignite a fire that would burn away the darkness. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, not through conquest, but through courage and unity. And now, they would help others find their strength. The journey back to Earth was bittersweet. The Erebus moved through the stars with a quiet grace, its hull still bearing the scars of battle. The crew, though weary, carried themselves with a newfound pride. They had faced the Draxians and lived to tell the tale. They had made history. As the ship approached Earth, the sight of the blue planet filled the bridge with a sense of relief. The familiar swirls of white clouds and vast oceans were a reminder of what they had fought for: a home, a future, a chance to live free. Yet, even as they drew closer, there was a sense of unease. The galaxy was vast, and the Draxians were not the only threat lurking in its shadows. It was during this quiet moment of reflection that the message arrived. The celestial observers, the enigmatic beings who had first warned humanity of the Draxians, had sent another transmission. Their voices, calm and otherworldly, carried a weight that silenced the bridge. The words they spoke were simple, but their meaning was profound. The Draxians were but one piece of the puzzle, the observers intoned. There is a greater darkness stirring in the depths of the galaxy. A force older and more powerful than you can imagine. Prepare yourselves, for the true test is yet to come. The message left the crew in stunned silence. Captain Hart felt a chill run down her spine. The battle they had just fought, the sacrifices they had made, it had all been a prelude. The galaxy's shadows were deeper than they had realized, and something ancient was beginning to stir. Hart turned to her crew, her voice steady despite the unease she felt. "We've faced the impossible before," she said. "And we'll do it again. Whatever's out there, we'll be ready." The words gave her crew strength, but in her heart, Hart knew the challenges ahead would make the Draxian war seem small in comparison. The galaxy was vast, its secrets endless. And somewhere in its depths, a new enemy waited, watching, preparing. As the Erebus descended toward Earth, the crew began their preparations. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. Humanity's fight for survival was only just beginning, and the next chapter of their story was about to unfold. And so, humanity, once dismissed as a minor player in the galaxy, has proven its strength not through conquest, but through courage, unity, and the willingness to stand up for what is right. The Erebus and its crew have sparked a revolution, but the road ahead is uncertain. What do you think lies next for humanity? Will they thrive in this new era, or will the galaxy's dangers prove too great? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more epic tales of humanity's rise among the stars. Until next time, keep dreaming and reaching for the stars.